Hi friends, welcome to the MuleSoft interview series. So in this session, I'm going to discuss about the very first question that interviews ask to the candidate. Tell me about yourself. So this session I am doing for the architects. So what interview will see in this question, what he evaluates, and what is the best answer the candidate can give so that interviewer will get 60 to 70% positive impression. So friends, the first impression is the best impression. So this question plays a very vital role in your interview, right? So how you need to answer this question and what interviewers evaluate in this question. So that's the content I'm going to discuss as part of this session. Let's dive. So what interview is going to see in this round is he want to see the confidence and clarity and depth, right? And communication, how you're going to communicate with this team or stakeholders, and self-awareness. You want to know what you are good at, right? That is a universe, that is the interviewer lens. And okay, in this question, particularly the first question, tell me about yourself. In this question, what's the interviewer want to see? So the interviewer want to understand the your architecture mindset. So are you thinking like a developer or are you thinking like an architect, right? And he want to understand about your career as a MuleSoft architect. What is your career? What kind of activities or how your journey is? He want to understand that one. And he want to understand, he or she want the interviewer want to understand about your background. Is that solution background fits for this project or not, right? And how you are communicating, or your communication style, are you communicating properly with the stakeholders or the team, different cross functional teams, right? So he want to evaluate about your communication, and he want to evaluate about your ownership. So most of times the candidates will answer like we did that, we did this. We means as a team, they are projecting as a team. But the interviewer specific for this role, he want to understand what you did as a I designed, I implemented. So he want to see the ownership, right? So that's the one point. This is the points the interviewer want to evaluate by this answer: your architecture mindset, your career trajectory, your relevance fit, and communication style, and the ownership. So your answer should fit in this all these concepts, and your answer should give a proper point on all these concepts, right? And what is the red flags? The red flags is like when you say too much focus, most of the people are too much focused on the implementation end. They will tell that okay, I implemented this flow and MuleSoft scatter gather data view. No, not at all. Don't tell about the tool or about the implementation. Most don't go deep on the implement. Just one or two words is fine, but don't go deep into the implementation, right? And too vague. I worked for integration for years. You should be very specific, not too vague. And you should tell the impact. What impact you created in your project, right? Okay, so this is the red flags. You don't, if you tell entire the first answer about the tools, that's not good. And you should be very specific, and you should tell the impact. If you don't tell anything impact, then this will be a red flag to you, right? And what is the framework? How to answer this question? This question is you need to tell about your journey, when you started your career as a what the role as a career, and how you grew, and how you transition to the MuleSoft. If you start to create the different technology, how you transition to the MuleSoft, and once you landed in the MuleSoft, what kind of impact you created for your project, right? Now, why you are choosing this role, you need to tell in that lines, right? I will give a script structure how to follow that. So the structure is like this, right? If you want to, for example, earlier your entire experience is 10 years or 8 years, and first initially 3 years you worked in the testing or your DevOps whatever, right? And last 5 years you transition to the MuleSoft, and for 5 years you're working on the MuleSoft and different API architecture and different APIs, okay? And you involved in the architecture discussions also, and you are good at API led architecture and the different other patterns, right? Then your answer should be mixture, your should contains all these elements, right? So I'm giving a sample answer over here. You need to view all like this. I started my career as a Java developer about 80 years ago. About 5 years ago, I made a deliberate transition to the MuleSoft, right? When API-led connectivity started becoming a de facto architectural approach for enterprises, over the last 5 years I have been involved in the full integration lifecycle from API strategy to design, through development, deployment and cloud hub and on-premise runtimes, all the way to the production operations and observability. So, what do you mean? You worked end to end, right from the architecture, design to the development, production, monitoring, every observability, anything, right? So, this all phases should involve in your answer. I don't just hand off things, I own full journey. Right? What distinguishes my experience is that I have been consistently involved in architecture decision making, choosing between synchronous REST and asynchronous event driven approaches, designing experience process and system API layers, and advising on governance models using API manager and anypoint exchange. See, if you observe this thing, I don't mention like I did a scatter gather, I did choice router, I did data, nothing, right? It's all things about your strategy, how you implemented your architectural approach towards your project, right? I want full ownership journey. And what the distinction is, you consistently involved in architecture decision making, choosing synchronous REST and asynchronous event driven approaches, right? Designing experience process system API layers. So this way, interviewer also expecting this kind of architectural patterns, right? So most recently, I have been leading integration architecture for a large scale digital transformation program where we modernized a legacy auto management ecosystem using API connectivity combined with event driven architecture using Anypoint MQ and Kafka. I will be happy to walk through that project in detail. Now I am looking for an opportunity where I can bring end-to-end architecture ownership, not just build, but shape the integration strategy for a platform at scale. Right. So, very brief introduction, and it tells about your journey and your work, what you did in the Anypoint platform or MuleSoft, and what is your recent achievement, what you did in the recent project, like you are lead an enterprise architecture large scale digital transformation project, and you did something or modernized the legacy automation system to the API layer, right? So you mentioned all the stuff. Most of people I observed is they introduce themselves about one or two lines. I have 10 years experience, something like that. Then they started telling about their project, what they did, what the project about, how the business. No, that's not the interview expectation. Project you can tell later. So this question is about your journey, right? So in your journey you need to tell about how you came to MuleSoft and what is your experience in MuleSoft, what are your achievements, right? And what are the patterns you followed. At the high level you need to answer this question, right? Okay. So this is a movie trailer, not a full film. Don't give the full film to the interviewer in this question. Right? And just you give a glimpse of your interview, your experience, then the interviewer asks the next set of questions. So friends, this is the format you need to answer for this question. So we're going to discuss about the more important questions in the next chapters, next sessions. Thank you so much. Stick and follow this pattern. See you in the next episode.